Whistling 5 Anarchic Productions proudly presents Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s stories, as told by Andrew Brammer. Hello and welcome. The story you are about to hear is written and told using its original source materials, scribblings and scratchings from the scrawls of Stumpy, found within Stumpy Sanderson's time capsule, which was buried in 1979 and then unearthed in 2019. The story is told in the first person, as I, just like Stumpy, witnessed at first hand the momentous events which it recounts. So let's park up our rally choppers and tomahawks and take a ride back to 1977 for Judkins's Bugle. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Accompanied by the booming of the big bass drum, the toot 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 of Johnny Judkins's bugle had been a constant soundtrack for so many of our Sunday mornings. Wherever you were, whether you were still lying in bed, being packed off to Sunday school, or up the park playing football, the clarion call of Judkins's bugle would carry through the air to you as he took pride of place at the head of the Boys' Brigade parade, always so immaculately turned out and well scrubbed, with his side-parted hair, owl-like face, and slightly jug ears. Over the years, Judkins became so attached to his bugle that he took to carrying it with him wherever he went, so that eventually it became almost a part of him, a physical appendage. As he got older, he began to develop an ever more sophisticated and unique style of playing. Having had the chromatic range of his instrument specially extended for him by his craftsman father, Judkins created what became known as the Judkins sound, a mode of playing that established itself as a sound for all seasons, and as a result, Judkins found himself in the position of Bugle Laureate. As such, he was often called upon to provide an appropriate command performance to accompany a particular event. For instance, when we took on the year above us in a huge snowball fight, it was Judkins's bravura bugle blowing which had sounded the charge. When we chased and hunted down the name-caller Stapleforth, it was Judkins who had sounded the tally-ho. Even the older generation had grown to appreciate his talents. For one sultry summer's evening in the park, as Gorpa Alsop's big sister lay languidly in her fiancé's arms on the park bench, she had beckoned us over and simply said, "Judkins, play for us." Judkins had duly obliged with a beautiful, haunting lullaby to serenade the courting couple. So, whatever the occasion, whether it was a fanfare or a sweet melody that was required, like a wise and solemn Pied Piper, Judkins would oblige with the most relevant tune. But there was one particular cold evening when Judkins pulled from the ether the most poignant and perfect piece of playing we had ever heard, a performance, the memory of which still makes the hairs on the back of the neck stand up. So let us return to the occasion that brought together that perfect broth of mischievous potential, a gang of boys, and a Saturday night, November the 5th. Smelling of coal tar soap and Rothman cigarettes, we rendezvoused by the red phone box, primed and ready for our planned evening of mayhem. A firework fight with the Beckford Boys, led by their loose cannon of a leader, Craig Beckford, otherwise known as Cro-Magnon Craig, an oversized wrecker with a battered bruiser's face, an unkempt forest of hair, and hands the size of bulldozer buckets. Now, this prearranged battle had been meticulously organised some weeks earlier by Stumpy Sanderson and a representative of the Beckford Boys, and the rules of engagement had been carefully negotiated and agreed by the pair of them. Rule 1. The battle site was to be at Hadrian's Wreck. Rule 2. There was to be a strict maximum limit of 8 boys per side. And Rule 3. As soon as one side ran out of fireworks, the hostilities would cease immediately. So it was just before 7:30 when we set off for our Waterloo, the air thick with smoke from the bonfires already underway, the bangs, thunderclaps and sparkles of the early evening displays lighting up the cold curtain of night, filling our nostrils with the whiff of cordite. Buzzing with an explosive cocktail of anticipation and adrenaline, our bomber jackets were stuffed full of enough gunpowder to start a small war. Bangers, airplanes, rockets, and those ballistic missiles of a boy's firework collection, air bomb repeaters. We walked along those mean streets with a real sense of comradeship. For we were boys who had carried out so many pranks together, had got into so many scrapes together, and had shared so many laughs. And now, together, we were going into a firework war. But there were only 7 of us, not the required 8. For Johnny Judkins was missing. Not only missing, but alas, poor wretch. When we had knocked on his door earlier, he had endured and suffered that nightmare moment which every boy of our age dreaded. His battle axe of a mother had answered the door, and standing there on the doorstep, her face like a perished hot water bottle, and with a large pair of scissors in her hand, she had uttered those reputation-crushing words. "Johnny won't be coming out until later. He's having his hair cut." Yet even though our group was one short, we had no apprehension whatsoever about the task ahead. Why were we so confident? Because our battle strategy had been fiendishly put together by the great Stephen Brookman, that freckle-faced, round-rimmed Trotsky glasses-wearing warped mastermind with Chairman Mao hair, whose in-depth study and knowledge of 19th century European history had resulted in him drawing up a blueprint for our tactics that drew heavily upon the influence of Napoleon's victories at Marengo, Austerlitz, and Friedland. And Brookman, possessing that devious genius necessary in all budding revolutionaries, had also decided to bend the rules of engagement, having some days earlier spotted a technical flaw in their construction. The rule agreed by Stumpy and the Beckford Boys states no more than 8 boys per side, but it doesn't state how many sides you can have. So, dipping into his own not inconsiderable pocket money funds, Brookman had arranged for, paid, and fully armed 2 other groups of 8 boys. Mercenaries drawn from his legions of left-wing sympathisers from different parts of town. These groups of boys would travel independently to Hadrian's Wreck, take up their secret positions at either side of where we would be facing the Beckford Boys, and then, at a pre-arranged signal from Brookman, would charge, trapping our opponents in a lethal and deadly crossfire. The Beckford Boys would have no chance. They would be outnumbered 3-1. After some 15 minutes or so of walking through enemy territory, the 7 of us at last stood on Hadrian's Wreck, looking across the dark expanse, when out of the smoky black velvet night 8 ugly figures appeared. Ghosts made matter, and we prepared to do battle with the Beckford Boys. The battle itself was a rout, the exact details of which are not for this tale, but are contained in the complete annals of Stumpy Sanderson, copies of which can be found in certain Bedfordshire town libraries. Suffice to say, everything went according to plan, and the Beckford Boys, hopelessly outnumbered, were cut down in a deadly onslaught of astral fireworks and a barrage of illegal Chinese air rockets fired by Brookman's mercenaries. The slaughter only stopped when Cro-Magnon Craig sounded a full retreat, and his gang fled the scene like whipped dogs. After the battle was over, we thanked the mercenaries as they departed, fired off our remaining fireworks at Cro-Magnon Craig's house, which we happened to pass on the way home, and eventually returned to our road. A gaggle of street urchins approached us. "What news from Hadrian's Wreck and Cro-Magnon Craig?" "A massacre," we replied to their awestruck faces, as we finally stood once again outside the red phone box from whence we had started out. Now, one of the desires aroused by a great victory such as we had achieved is the urge to celebrate outrageously. And, with boys of our type and background, the need to do something completely stupid. So, still feeling elated from our triumph, it was Brookman who hit upon the choice of festivity and proclaimed, "To round off our historic evening, there's 7 of us here, so let us equal the phone box cramming record." A great cheer went up, for we were on a high, victorious, ecstatic, without a care in the world, and we now had the chance to equal the record of cramming 7 of us into a phone box. So, one by one, into the phone box we went. Bendy's pipe cleaner figure first, followed by Brookman, the 3 others, then me, then Stumpy. Clambering on top of each other, the pressure was pretty intense as we squashed in, our faces pushed against the glass, breathing in the stale odour. Then, just as we had equalled the record and were getting used to the octopus of discomfort, Stumpy suddenly hissed, "Oh no!" And for those of us whose faces were able to twist and see, the most ominous and terrible sight began to loom. For outside the phone box, slowly appearing, were the 8 figures of the Beckford Boys, their torturers' faces like dripping funeral candles as they oozed and lurched up to the glass. 2 of them were holding in tow a prisoner of war, Johnny Judkins, who, having left his house late after his haircut nightmare, had been captured as the Beckford Boys retreated from Hadrian's Wreck. And standing there at the gang's head was Cro-Magnon Craig. His huge blast furnace of a face, red and sweltering, grinning like some scorched and evil jack-o'-lantern. In his hand he held a huge banger, the largest we had ever seen. Inside the phone box, the smell of fear permeated, as Cro-Magnon Craig, as if in slow motion, opened the door. We now knew we were going to perish, for revenge is a banger best served in a phone box. And as we prepared to meet our doom, Cro-Magnon Craig asked that question reserved exclusively for the condemned. "Any last requests?" It was Brookman, who seemingly without hesitation put into words what we were all thinking. "Let Judkins play for us?" "Granted." Cro-Magnon Craig nodded assent to his 2 henchmen, who let go of their prisoner. From his wind-cheater, Judkins, with great solemnity of purpose, and with just the glint of a tear in his eye, carefully pulled out his gleaming bugle, moistened his lips, and began to play the most haunting and appropriate tune for his doomed comrades. Cro-Magnon Craig grinned a cutthroat's grin, lit the huge banger, and rolled it in, closing the door behind him. As it smoked and crackled beneath us, the fuse burning down, we waited for the explosion. Thank you for listening to this episode of Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s Stories. And don't forget to listen out for Stumpy and Gang's next adventure. For further information on all things Stumpy Sanderson, please visit www.stumpysanderson.co.uk. And you can also check out the Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s Stories YouTube channel. But before we saddle up again on our rally choppers and tomahawks, let's take a listen to the strange little song that was specially written by Stumpy to accompany this podcast's tale. This song is performed for us now by Stumpy Sanderson's 1970s acoustic archive. Let's rock!
There's gonna be fireworks in the bone box, a firework wall against the Beckford Boys. We're gonna be ready, we're gonna hold steady, 'cause we've got Brookman's Chinese wall. Ooh, bang bang fireworks. Ooh, bang bang fireworks. Standard, 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 rock, 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 rock. Astra, 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 Astra. Bang bang fireworks. There's gonna be fireworks and explosive sound blocks in your neighborhood. Yeah, coming your way. You better be ready for the firework heavies, armed and deadly, an explosive medley. Ooh, bang bang fireworks.